Okay, brother, you want to play word games? If I said the Saudis control America, but in reality I meant the Saudi lobby, and you want to nitpick over that, no problem. But I have criticized the Saudi government, the Russian government,
Yes.
Chinese, British, American, and Israeli government. The only time I got banned was when I criticized apparently your new king.
Jacob Rees-Mogg entered this interview believing he had Cenk Uygur trapped with a single quote. Instead, he ended up watching his own argument unravel in real time. The setup seemed straightforward. Read Cenk's statement that Israel controls the American government, then argue that he was really claiming Jewish people control the government. Cenk pushed back immediately, drawing a distinction that's worth examining carefully. The difference between criticizing a foreign government's political influence and promoting an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory is one that repeatedly gets blurred in debates like this. Rather than accepting either side's framing outright, it's important to unpack where that line actually exists. What follows is a tense exchange about lobbying, campaign finance, and the point at which criticism of a foreign government's influence on U.S. politics crosses into something more troubling. It's a significant distinction, and this conversation shows just how messy these debates become.
A host of Young Turks. So why do you think you've been banned?
Okay, so first of all, I hope I don't upset the public order, because I'm sure that as soon as people hear me in the United Kingdom, mayhem will break out. That's according to the British government, which is hilarious and ridiculous. Second of all, I want to clarify on the grooming gangs that that portion of what the British government said is a flat out lie. If you kept rolling that tape, it is on tape and it is indisputable. I said the grooming gangs definitely exist, and they should definitely be prosecuted.
When there's no agreement on where that boundary lies.
Period.
I'm Justin.
And probably they got it from the Israeli lobby.
Hit like,
the Israeli lobby exists in America and the UK.
We'll break down the entire exchange
and then
at
people
the end.
claim they don't have any power, which is hilarious. This is super important. There is a massive difference between Jewish people and the government of Israel. It's true of every single country. There's a difference between the British people and the British government, the Turkish people and the Turkish government, right? So now when you say that about the Turkish government or the Saudi government, everybody agrees. When you say it about the Israeli government, they weaponize charges of anti-Semitism in order to protect the government of Israel and the genocide they're committing. So I'm a fierce critic of Israel, but I never put it on Jewish people. In fact, I'm worried that Israel's defenders are using that in a callous way, and it endangers Jewish Americans and Jews in Britain and across the world, because they keep saying all Jews want this genocide. That's not true.
All right.
None of the Jewish people I know want it.
But is it strictly true that you always differentiate between the Israeli government and the Jewish people? I believe you said Israel controls the American government through donations to 94% of Congress. But those donations aren't from the Israeli government. They're from individual Jewish people living in the United States. As I understand American election law, governments aren't allowed to donate to political parties. So actually you do sometimes conflate the Jewish people and the state of Israel, and that is prima facie anti-Semitic.
You know, you just made that up on tape, right? Like I said, Israel.
No, I've got this quotation from you.
Let me finish. You asked, you did a very serious charge, so let me answer it. I said Israel. You quoted me as saying Israel.
I did.
Then you said, hold on. Then you said, no, but you meant Jewish people. Why? I didn't say that. You said that. Are you an anti-Semite? I'm worried you're an anti-Semite. Why did you say Jewish people? Jewish people don't actually support this current Netanyahu government. Did you know that? 63%? Hold on. 63% of Jewish Americans,
which I read out correctly, is that Israel controls the American government through donations to 94% of Congress.
Period.
Jewish people donate to congressmen. The Israeli government does not. So you have conflated. You've said Israel controls.
You're incorrect.
You're meaning Jewish people control. You know that perfectly well.
You're putting words in my mouth. You're literally, and people can see it with their own eyes and hear it with their own ears.
Tell me,
words in my mouth. You want me to explain what actually happens in America?
On what legal basis does the Israeli government donate to 94% of American congressmen?
No, the Israeli lobby. Now, the Israeli lobby is made up of Americans, but it is not made up of purely Jewish Americans. I don't know why you want to be anti-Semitic like that. There are more Christian Zionists in America than Jewish Zionists. And they are part of the Israeli lobby
but that's not what you said.
Give endless money to Israel. So please stop smearing
That's not
Jews
what
like
you
that.
said. You said Israel controls.
I said Israel.
So you're implying
yes,
the government of Israel.
Okay. Now you want to do nitpicking, and if I say Turkey, and you say, "Oh, well, no, that's Turkey and not the Turkish lobby,"
because
you wouldn't
really
do that
important.
in that case. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to smear me? It's weird.
I'm not trying to
telling you
smear
that
you.
a foreign government, and their supporters are doing this, and
so
you can't dispute it.
You are saying Israel controls the American government through donations to Congress, but those donations are not given by the Israeli government because that would not be legal under American political financing laws, as you know.
Okay, brother, you want to play word games? If I said the Saudis control America, but in reality I meant the Saudi lobby, and you want to nitpick over that, no problem. But I have criticized the Saudi government, the Russian government, Chinese, British, American, and Israeli government. The only time I got banned was when I criticized apparently your new king, which is Israel. So tell me why I didn't get banned over criticizing those other countries, including Britain. How come I didn't get banned over that? How come Israel's the only country you're not allowed to criticize in Britain? You should know that you're ruled.
You can criticize any government you like, but what clearly you were saying in this quotation was conflating Israel with the Jewish people.
You're literally putting words in my mouth.
You get very sensitive
about me,
because this is
lying on
what you're
tape.
doing.
It's amazing.
I'm not lying for a moment. I'm reading out your own
about
words,
the Israeli
for
lobby.
which you have been unable to give any explanation.
You owe your viewers an explanation for being an anti-Semite. I'm asking. I'm saying is
my viewers know me better than that. So
okay, I don't know
silly.
why you're so deeply anti-Semitic. I'm saying the Israeli lobby that has Christians and Jews in it, and maybe other people. And you're saying no, you're blaming the Jews. You have to blame the Jews for Israel. No, don't do that. Don't do that. I have Jewish family. I have Jewish friends. I have Jewish co-founders of the Young Turks. They're all for peace. They're against this war. They're against this genocide. But you keep wanting to hide behind them to protect a government doing genocidal actions that we're being forced to pay for. Why do you want to defend genocidal monsters and then smear Jewish people as all being in favor of it? Why are you being so anti-Semitic?
You have a history of not phrasing yourself very carefully and then apologizing for it. So you apologize for things you said.
I'm not apologizing for it. You should apologize for trying to smear me right now and putting words in my mouth.
You've apologized for denying the Armenian genocide. You've apologized for some of the things you said about touching women up when you were young and drunk.
No,
you have a history of apologizing for things. I understand that.
Again, you're lying.
But we need to look at these things carefully. But what I'd like to know is if the country would let you in, do you actually want to come to England?
I love England. I love the British people. And guess what? The British people, the great majority of them, agree with me. They don't agree that you should all bow down to Israel, that you should finance their genocide and their wars. They don't agree that you should finance the slaughter of 23,000 Palestinian children. They don't agree with this war. This war is a disaster. I love the British people. I wish the British government would represent the British people.
Do you regret the attacks on the 7th of October 2023?
So I've said from day one that October 7th was wrong. I'm against killing civilians. I'm against terrorism. Do you condemn Israel killing 100 times the civilians that Hamas did? And at a worse civilian kill ratio than Hamas, worse than any terrorist group in the world, 83% according to the IDF's own numbers. Do you condemn Israel for being 100 times the terrorist Hamas is?
I think Israel has right to self-defense. But I also think you should be allowed into the country to put your case.
So the Palestinians have no self-defense.
However much I disagree with it.
But the Israelis are allowed to slaughter.
You're not speaking of the Oxford Union. Well, we've got to go.
Let's break this down carefully because there's a genuine distinction being debated here, and it's worth examining rather than simply deciding who appeared more convincing or more frustrated during the interview. Start with the central accusation Rees-Mogg made. His argument was that when Cenk said Israel controls the American government through donations to 94% of Congress, he was effectively making an anti-Semitic claim by using Israel as a stand-in for Jewish people. In Rees-Mogg's view, that makes the statement inherently anti-Semitic, This concern doesn't come from nowhere. There is a well-established history of anti-Semitic rhetoric that conflates Israel, Zionists, and Jewish people broadly, treating Jews around the world as collectively responsible for the actions of the Israeli state. Organizations such as the IHRA have identified this type of conflation as a warning sign worth paying attention to. So, the broader pattern Rees-Mogg is pointing to is real and should be taken seriously. The problem, however, is that the statement both men agreed Cenk actually made referred specifically to Israel, not Jews or Jewish people. Rees-Mogg's position was essentially that saying Israel controls Congress through donations amounts to saying Jews control Congress because, in his interpretation, the donors and organizations involved are fundamentally Jewish. That's the key assumption underlying his argument, and it's important to be precise about it because so much depends on that premise. Cenk's response was that the pro-Israel lobbying network in the United States, with AIPAC as its most prominent example, is neither exclusively nor predominantly Jewish. That's a factual claim that can be examined rather than dismissed. Christian Zionism, the belief held by many evangelical Christians that supporting Israel is a religious obligation, is a major force in American politics, and, in terms of raw numbers, may be more influential on this issue than Jewish political engagement itself. Christians United for Israel, founded by John Hagee, claims millions of members, far exceeding the roughly 7.5 million Jewish Americans in the United States, many of whom are neither politically active on this issue nor supportive of every Israeli government policy. Polling regularly shows that white evangelical Christians are among the strongest supporters of Israel in America, often more so than American Jews, whose views, particularly among younger and more progressive groups, have become increasingly divided, especially regarding the war in Gaza. That matters because Cenk's broader point, that support for pro-Israel policy in American politics comes from a coalition that is religiously and demographically diverse rather than a unified Jewish bloc, holds up reasonably well under scrutiny. If that's true, then the claim that Israel exerts influence through lobbying is not automatically functioning as coded language for Jews controlling government. Instead, it's a claim about the political influence of a foreign policy. Lobby, similar to arguments made about countries such as Saudi Arabia or China. The 94% figure itself also deserves scrutiny because specific statistics should always be verified. Campaign finance databases and organizations like Open Secrets have documented that pro-Israel political action committees and aligned donor networks contribute to a large majority of members of Congress across both parties. This information is publicly available and not hidden. Whether the exact number is 94% in a given cycle would require checking the specific source being cited, but the broader point, that pro-Israel lobbying is among the most influential and well-funded advocacy efforts in American politics, is supported by publicly available data. Rees-Mogg's procedural argument that foreign governments cannot legally donate directly to American political campaigns is also correct. Federal election law prohibits direct foreign contributions to U.S. candidates. But this doesn't actually contradict what Cenk was saying. Cenk clarified that he was referring to the Israeli lobby, not the Israeli government itself. American. Citizens and organizations advocating policies aligned with foreign interests operate within a separate and legal framework. That's the role domestic lobbying groups play. Similar structures exist not only for Israel but also for Taiwan, Saudi interests, and many other countries. Where the conversation became more difficult is that both men appeared to be arguing past each other rather than engaging the same question. Cenk's strongest point was procedural. Why? Did criticism of Israel specifically lead to a UK entry ban when he claims to have criticized Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, Britain, and the United States without facing similar consequences? That's a legitimate question that deserves a direct answer. Instead, much of the response shifted toward unrelated controversies involving Cenk's past statements and personal history. Whatever one thinks of those issues, raising them in response to a question about consistency in policy enforcement is a deflection rather than a direct rebuttal. It doesn't address why criticism of Israel allegedly produced a different outcome. The exchange about October 7th was arguably the most important part of the interview, yet it received the least follow-up. Cenk stated clearly that he condemned the October 7th attacks from the beginning and opposes terrorism and the killing of civilians. Taking that statement at face value, he then asked Rees-Mogg whether he condemned the civilian casualty rate in Gaza, citing an 83% figure he attributed to Israeli reporting. Rees-Mogg responded by affirming Israel's right to self-defense, which is true as a general principle of international law. But that answer didn't directly address the question being asked, which concerned the conduct and proportionality of that self-defense, not whether the right exists. That same pattern appeared throughout much of the exchange. One side posed a specific question, and the response often addressed a related but different issue. Here's where I ultimately land. The distinction Cenk was making between criticism of a foreign government's political influence and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Jewish control is real, important, and meaningful. His factual claims regarding the demographic makeup of pro-Israel political advocacy in the United States appear broadly consistent with available evidence. At the same time, Rees-Mogg's broader concern that criticism of Israel and references to Zionists are sometimes used as coded substitutes for anti-Semitic claims about Jews is also based on a real and documented pattern that deserves serious attention. Both of those realities can exist simultaneously. Looking strictly at the evidence presented in this interview, Cenk's stated position appears consistent with the actual language that was quoted. Rees-Mogg's accusation, by contrast, relied on an inferred hidden meaning,